who are sick and tired of having to carry the torch even into 2024 to protect women's rights. All I can say is, after news information came out from the New York Times today, at last the truth has been revealed. We now know exactly where former President Donald Trump stands on women's freedoms. And he has said clearly, if he were to be President of the United States, that our entire country, all 50 states, would be forced to live under an abortion ban, which is abhorrent to all of us standing here and across our nation. So we've been forewarned. And whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or just don't care about voting in politics, you ought to be concerned about your freedom, because that's going to be a vestige of the past. Now, even in states like New York, and I'll never forget when I was running for this position, and we talked about the importance of not just having abortion rights codified in New York, but also a constitutional amendment. And people said, what are you worried about? It's a blue state, it's safe. This is what I was worried about. This is what I said could happen. You could end up with a president like Donald Trump, who wants to trample on women's rights, because we have seen in case after case, he doesn't give a damn about women. But also, if we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, women, our lives are in jeopardy. Our daughters' lives are in jeopardy. All of our rights are in jeopardy. So we stand together, just like we gathered after the Dobbs decision that wiped out decades of progress, all the women who marched and took to the streets. And we take women's rights so seriously here in the great state of New York. The women's rights movement started right here in our own state, and we've never stopped marching. After Dobbs, we gathered our legislature, and I joined together. We gave more money for our clinics. We made sure that our doctors were protected. We stood firm and said we'll do whatever it takes to make sure that this right is enshrined. And, ladies and gentlemen, this right will be on the ballot here in the state of New York this November, a constitutional amendment. But I'll be brief, because this is a real simple issue. We want to live in a nation where women have lost the right to control their own body. We want to live in a nation like that, my friends? No. We want to live in a state where, despite our best efforts, those rights are also trampled upon. I say no. We must move forward, united. And I'm calling on all the members who represent the great state of New York as members of Congress sworn in our nation's capital, Democrat and Republicans, stand up and tell us now today who you are standing with. I want to hear your voices loud and clear so Donald Trump knows that, at least in the state of New York, your message is not welcome here. We will not stand with you, and we will not support you in this effort to strip women's rights away even further. So with that, I'll conclude by saying, when it comes to taking away our rights, not now, not ever, not in the state of New York. So thank you very much for staying united with us. Thank you. And with that, let me bring up a champion for women's rights in every respect of the word, our great Senator Kirsten Gillibrand.
Well, we are deeply blessed to have a governor who has such a vision, such strength, such integrity, and such courage to fight, no matter what, to guarantee reproductive freedom for all women in this state. She is visionary and she is tireless, and I'm grateful that I can stand here with her among all of the women elected leaders that are standing behind me. This is a group of women who have dedicated their lives to serving others, and they will fight for every New York woman, no matter what, to make sure they get the care they deserve and they need. Today, President Trump made very clear to all Americans that he would support a national abortion ban. It's horrifying. It's disturbing. It undermines the basic fabric of our community that we believe in equality, that we believe that women have the right to bodily autonomy, that we have a right to civil rights and justice under the law. He does not believe that. He believes in a national abortion ban. And it's not shocking, because last time he was president, he said on television that there should be some form of punishment for any woman who accessed abortion services. President Trump and MAGA Republicans have worked for decades to strip away women's reproductive freedom, fundamental human rights. It's why they've politicized and degraded the Supreme Court, which in turn abandoned 50 years of judicial precedent. The Dobbs decision eviscerated not just the women's access to a reproductive care, they eviscerated a woman's right to privacy. Right to privacy that has been looked at in red states and been taken away. Right to privacy in the mails, right to privacy in conversations with your mother on Facebook, right to privacy to travel across state lines with your parents to get reproductive care, right to privacy to receive medicine in the mail that your doctor has prescribed. It is far more egregious and expansive than just limiting one medical procedure. But that is what this Supreme Court does. And what it basically decides is what your rights are based on your zip code. What your fundamental human rights are based on your zip code. It makes women second-class citizens with less than equal protection under the law. This is about who we are as a nation and whether we deserve these fundamental rights. This report should serve as a wake-up call to all of us, not just to women in red states. This is a wake-up call to women in blue states. This is a wake-up call to women anywhere in this country of reproductive age. That is basically 40 years of your life. You do not have equality. Luckily, women in this country know how to fight. They fight back at the polls. They show up every single time. They fight back in New York. Even in red states like Montana, Kansas, Kentucky, voters have rejected proposals that restrict reproductive rights. In purple states like Michigan and Ohio, they went ahead and enshrined those reproductive rights into their constitutions. Now, because of our great governor, she thinks ahead. So this year on our ballot, we will have the chance to enshrine equality into our Constitution. We have a chance to vote for an ERA that guarantees and prohibits discrimination based on a person's ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity, and pregnancy status. It is the state-of-the-art, best ERA in the entire country, thanks to our governor and our legislature. So I have one extra really, really important strategy. Now, this is a similar fight we are going to do nationally. We have a chance right now to enshrine the Equal Rights Amendment into the U.S. Constitution. I have a resolution right now that would direct the archivist of the United States to certify and publish the Equal Rights Amendment, because our Constitution, Article 5, requires only two things. It requires you pass it 2/3 in the House and Senate majority and pass it in 3/4 of the states to be ratified. That has happened. The 2/3 in the House and Senate happened in the 70s. The ratification of the 38th state, 3/4 of states, happened in 2020. Unfortunately, the president was President Trump. He directed his Department of Justice, Office of Legal Counsel, to issue an opinion that said it was invalid because of timing. But we have legal arguments to say, number one, Article 5 doesn't give you the right to set timing as a Congress. Number two, if it does, then you better set it in the amendment itself. This timing was in the prefatory language, the preamble, so it is not valid. And third, they rely on a Supreme Court case from 1921 that has since been vitiated. That said, all constitutional amendments have to be done in a reasonable amount of time. Well, guess what? In the 90s, we got the 27th Amendment. It took 203 years. So that is more than reasonable. And so these are our strategies. So we have to all push the archivist to the United States to sign and publish, and to make sure that our president understands we can fight back nationally, we as a nation and we as a state can fight back in New York, and women this election season can fight back on the ballot, because if we ensure we have a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, and win the presidency, we will protect our rights. We have a chance, because of our governor, because of Hakeem Jeffries, that we can actually flip the House in New York State alone. And we are going to do that because we care about equality in New York State.
Any questions for our fired up speakers here today?
Start with the on topics.
All right.
I wanted to ask, do you believe that President Biden has been strong enough on the abortion issue in his term so far?
I do. Well, you can answer
No,
first.
absolutely. You're in Washington, you see it, but across the nation, I have never heard him once waver in his support for this fundamental right that women have always had in my lifetime, almost in my lifetime, that was stripped away by Donald Trump. So I feel he is strongly committed to this, and we'll make sure he will be certain that his voice is out there to show the extreme contrast between our current president, who supports freedom for women, versus Donald Trump, who does not.
Yes, and President Biden has said every single time he will stand with women, he will guarantee their reproductive freedom, he will fight as hard as he can in the courts, and I'm hopeful that we can have an archivist that signs and publishes an ERA, because when you do, in the states that have ERAs, both Connecticut and New Mexico, and soon to be hopefully Pennsylvania, they've already used ERAs to guarantee reproductive freedom. Even in the 90s, they said if equality is true, and you cover all reproductive care for men, but not all reproductive care for women, it's fundamentally unequal. So this ERA in our state and this national ERA that we can hopefully get behind will allow us to protect women's reproductive freedom from red states and from President Trump.
All right, anything else before we head out?
All right, thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
To the decision in the Trump trial today.
See the smile? I just got off the phone with Attorney General Tish James and spoke to her about how this sends a strong message that in the state of New York, business people who commit fraud and to hide their assets will be caught and prosecuted, whether you're the President of the United States, a past president and forever past president of the United States, or you're an ordinary business person. No one is above the law here in the state of New York. And I congratulate her and her effort for making sure that that is a message that is heard loud and clear, not just here in New York, but across this entire nation. Thank you.
Thanks,